The last two public meetings for the Cumberland County Commissioners have been contentious. They have had to do with ICE and the contract the county has with them to house people arrested by federal law enforcement.
Many members of the public and at least apparently two commissioners want that contract to end. Joining us this morning to talk about the meeting, the controversy in a contract and how the county works with ICE is Cumberland County Sheriff Kevin Joyce. Kevin, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about the emotional environment at the last couple of meetings. You had told me a few weeks ago you hadn't seen that in a long time.
I don't think I've ever seen it. It is an emotional, topic. We're sensitive to our communities and the people who live in our communities and how they take what's going on today. As I tell people, my world hasn't changed. We've held ICE inmates for 32 years, since the Cumberland County Jail was built on Congress Street. The only thing that's changed is the administration in Washington and the priorities. And quite frankly, those priorities are ebbed and flowed. And the numbers of ICE detainees at the jail have been up and down. Currently there are 62 at the Cumberland County Jail. And, people think, we shouldn't be holding them. Well, state law requires me to hold them. In fact, there are two laws that are mentioned that I'm obligated to take any arrest that comes, whether it's state, local, or federal. There's the Maine Department of Corrections standard that requires me not to turn away any arrestees, both state, local, and federal, that show up at the door. So my world hasn't changed. It's just the priorities of the administration, as well as people's feelings on the issue. I honestly believe that some people feel like if we don't hold ICE inmates, then ICE goes away, and that isn't going to happen. In fact, I think it will draw attention to Maine.
Can you tell us more about the contract itself, how long it's been in place, and what's in it exactly?
So we've held ICE inmates for the last 32 years. The current contract was signed about a year and a half ago. There was a period of time where I didn't hold ICE inmates, although we had some there, just because of staffing issues and some other issues that we needed to take care of. So that was the only lapse. But about a year and a half ago, we signed the commissioner signed a contract with the feds, and they get $150 reimbursement fee per inmate per day, which does help out with the county taxpayers not having to pay for a certain portion of the jail. It's a big operation. The jail is an expensive operation.
Do you go out with ICE agents and help with arrests, or would you, or any of your deputies, if ICE asked you to? So
no. I believe as a local law enforcement officer, we should not be playing in the enforcement of immigration law. Immigration law is a totally different set of statutes, federal statutes, that we have absolutely no training in whatsoever. And everybody, there's visas, there's other travel documents, and there's exceptions to those. So local law enforcement has no place in the enforcement of this unless somebody wants to set themselves up for a lawsuit, because individuals don't have a scarlet letter that say legal or illegal. And if you don't know what you're doing and you detain the wrong person, you could get into a lawsuit. I've told my staff that I don't expect them to do immigration law enforcement whatsoever. If immigration calls and wants help, that will be a decision I make based on what the circumstances are. If immigration calls screaming for help because they're in danger, my staff will respond, just like I would expect the ICE to stop if I was getting beat up on the side of the road or any other law enforcement was asking for help. We will respond to that, because it's my obligation, my staff's obligation, to make sure that no law enforcement gets hurt doing their job.
Can you talk about the latest commission vote and what that was, and maybe what was your takeaway from that meeting?
So the last 5 months, we've had people showing up at the commission meeting, and there are two things at discussion here. The commissioners, they signed the contract. And they have the ability to do away with the contract. It still doesn't impact me. I've been really clear for the last 5 months. I will follow the law, I'll follow the state law, and I will continue to hold ICE inmates. I have no choice. The commissioners have a choice whether or not they get paid for it, but I have no choice on whether or not I hold them or not. And I always think it's kind of a bad thing if a law enforcement officer breaks the law. because I've often said, okay, if I were to break this law to go along with what the folks are asking, what other laws can I break with relative impunity? So I'll follow the law. We'll continue to hold the ICE inmates because my aspect of it is public safety, and that's why the law is in place.
So, Sheriff, if it was flipped around, if it was 3-2 to end the contract, you would still hold inmates arrested by ICE. So what does that contract mean then?
Well, the contract is about the monetary part and what is expected from the U.S. Marshals or ICE. For instance, their contract requires if somebody goes to the hospital, I have to send 2 deputies to the hospital to watch them 24/7, whereas a state inmate, depending on their classification, may only be 1 deputy. It is a reimbursement because, again, most of the people I'm dealing with have a lot of significant health issues, and it's very costly. So there are hospital details, certain diets that we have to follow. So that's a reimbursement thing. So the contracts are more about money and reimbursement. Mine is about actually keeping them safe and secure in a humane manner.
And so in your eyes, are you saying that in order for you to not accept these arrested people, it would have to be a change of state or federal law?
Yeah, and I've told people, if you don't like the law, get it changed. But we just don't stop violating laws just to make a point. You know, there's a lot of contention on whether or not immigration law is fair. Well, somewhere along the way, our federal counterparts decided that this was something that they wanted implemented, and we've been living under these laws for several years. These laws didn't just change last month or last year or 2 years from now. And if people want to get them changed, then that's what America's all about. You don't like it, change it.
Let's talk about the future now. And what kind of, have you seen anything different since, you know, the last year and a half when it comes to, you know, immigration and everything?
Well, you know, a lot of emotion about it. A lot of people, you know, for or against. Clearly, our numbers have gone up. You know, right now we have about 60, plus or minus. It's not like I'm going to fill my place with immigration arrests, quite frankly. ICE knows and the U.S. Marshal knows that I have 1 pod with a maximum of 84 inmates. Now, what throws it off is that's all males, so I could take female ICE inmates and marshals and put them amongst the regular general population. So it's not like an endless area to house ICE inmates or U.S. Marshals, because I have to keep beds open for state and local law enforcement as well. And I have staffing challenges. They're a lot better than they have been in previous years, but you know, I'm not fully staffed, and quite frankly, there's no need to open empty pods right now. So, you know, my staff is working on a daily basis to make sure that we're keeping enough beds open so that we can take care of the emergency when people just drop off a bunch of inmates, but also making sure that we're trying to be as effective as possible. So every day is moving inmates around. Some people are moving inmates out, you know, to other places, and it's very fluid.
All right, Sheriff Joyce, thanks for sharing that insight for us this morning.
you.
We appreciate it.
Good luck
Thanks
in
a
the
lot.
future.
Yes.
All right.